In this video, we're going to look at the stories of America's oldest executed prisoners, men who spent decades behind bars before finally meeting their end. These are stories of crime, justice, and the long road to execution. From their brutal crimes to their final words and last meals, these cases show us just how long the death penalty process can take in America. Before we begin, like this video and comment where you're watching from. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Knowledge is power. Walter Leroy Moody Jr., Alabama. At 83 years and 26 days old, Walter Leroy Moody Jr. holds the distinction of being the oldest individual executed in the United States since capital punishment was reinstated in 1976. His execution took place on April 19, 2018, at Holman Correctional Facility in Alabama. Moody's crimes began on December 16, 1989, when federal judge Robert Smith Vance received a deadly package at his Mountain Brook, Alabama residence. The homemade explosive device killed Judge Vance instantly and caused severe injuries to his wife Helen. 2 days following this attack, civil rights lawyer Robert E. Robinson died in a similar bombing at his Savannah, Georgia office. Federal investigators conducted an extensive manhunt that culminated in the arrest of Moody and his spouse Susan McBride on July 13, 1990. McBride cooperated with authorities, providing testimony against her husband in return for immunity from prosecution. The investigation revealed that Moody had dispatched multiple explosive devices, including packages sent to the 11th Circuit Court headquarters in Atlanta and the NAACP office in Jacksonville, Florida. These additional mailings were strategic attempts to obscure his involvement in Judge Vance's assassination. The federal prosecution resulted in Moody's conviction on all counts, earning him 7 consecutive life sentences. Subsequently, Alabama state prosecutors pursued capital charges for Judge Vance's murder, securing a death sentence on February 13, 1997. For his final meal, Moody selected a Philly cheesesteak sandwich, Dr. Pepper, and M&M candies. When offered the opportunity to make final statements, he declined to speak. The lethal injection procedure was completed at 8:42 p.m. Bigler Stouffer II, Oklahoma. Bigler Stouffer II became Oklahoma's oldest executed inmate at 79 years and 2 months, when he was put to death on December 9, 2021. His execution marked the second carried out in Oklahoma following the state's resumption of capital punishment in October 2021. Stouffer faced execution for the 1985 murder of Linda Reeves. Throughout legal proceedings, he maintained complete innocence, asserting that Reeves was deceased upon his arrival at the crime scene. He claimed that Doug Ivins, Reeves' companion, had already sustained severe injuries. Prosecutors presented a different narrative, arguing that Stouffer murdered Reeves and attempted to kill Ivins to access a substantial $2 million life insurance policy. The state alleged that Stouffer's romantic involvement with Ivins' former wife provided the motive for the crimes. Following the overturning of his initial sentence, Stouffer received a new death sentence in 2003. His legal team pursued numerous appeals over nearly 2 decades, including arguments that lethal injection constituted cruel and unusual punishment. The Supreme Court rejected his final appeal shortly before the scheduled execution date. Stouffer's last meal consisted of a chicken sandwich, 2 bread slices, French fries, broccoli, mixed fruit, 2 cookies, a fruit beverage, and bottled water. The execution procedure began at 10:00 a.m., with Stouffer losing consciousness at 10:07 a.m. and being pronounced dead at 10:16 a.m. without complications. His final words were, "My request is that my Father forgive them. Thank you." Even facing death, Stouffer continued proclaiming his innocence in Reeves' murder while expressing forgiveness toward his executioners. In pre-execution interviews, he stated his belief that life imprisonment without parole was a worse fate than death, expressing gratitude and peace regarding the denial of his clemency petition. Carl Wayne Buntian, Texas. Carl Wayne Bunchen became Texas's oldest executed prisoner at age 78 when he was put to death on April 21, 2022 at the Huntsville unit. His execution concluded 31 years on death row, one of the longest periods in Texas history. The crime occurred on June 27, 1990, when Houston police officer James Irby conducted a routine traffic stop. Bunchen, a passenger in the stopped vehicle, was on parole following conviction for child sexual assault. After brief interaction with Officer Irby, Bunchen exited the vehicle and fired a fatal shot to the officer's head without warning. As Irby collapsed, Bunchen fired additional rounds into the officer's back. The attack continued as Bunchen shot at civilian bystanders while attempting to steal a vehicle before his arrest. A jury imposed the death sentence in 1991. The Texas Court of Criminal Appeals overturned this sentence in 2009, but a subsequent 2012 trial reinstated capital punishment. The U.S. Supreme Court's 2021 denial of his final appeal cleared the path for execution. Bunchen's last meal request was not disclosed by prison officials. Before his death, he addressed Officer Irby's family directly. "I want the Irby family to know one thing. I regret what I did. I pray to God that they get closure for having their father killed and Mrs. Irby's husband taken away. To all my friends who have stood by me all these years, I'm not going to say goodbye, just see you later. I'm ready to go to heaven, Warden." Outside the prison facility, dozens of motorcyclists, including active and retired Houston police officers, revved their engines during the execution time. Witnesses characterized the demonstration as disturbing, with some describing it as disrespectful. Bunchen was pronounced dead at 6:39 p.m. John B. Nixon, Mississippi. John B. Nixon Sr. was executed on December 14, 2005 at Mississippi State Penitentiary in Parchman after spending over 19 years on death row. His execution was Mississippi's first in 2005 and the seventh since 1976. The murder-for-hire plot unfolded on January 2, 1985, when Nixon and accomplices John Nixon Jr. and Gilbert Jimenez invaded the Tucker residence. Nixon brandished a .22 caliber pistol, declaring, "I've got something for you," to the occupants. Thomas Tucker, recently married to Virginia Tucker for 6 months, immediately recognized the men as hired killers sent by his wife's ex-husband. Thomas offered monetary payment to spare their lives, but Nixon responded, "That's not what I'm after. The deal is already done." Nixon shot Thomas twice, though he managed to escape. Nixon then seized Jimenez's weapon and executed Jimenez with a headshot while Jimenez restrained her. The killers fled, but Thomas survived to provide identification. The investigation revealed that Elster Joseph Pontu had orchestrated the contract killing, receiving a life sentence for capital murder. Nixon's sons, Henry Leon Nixon and John B. Nixon Jr., were convicted on related charges. Jimenez received a 20-year sentence in exchange for testimony against the others. Nixon was sentenced to death on March 26, 1986. His appeals proved unsuccessful throughout his lengthy incarceration. For his final meal, Nixon requested a well-done T-bone steak, buttered asparagus, baked potato with sour cream, peach pie, vanilla ice cream, and sweet tea. The execution began at 6:25 p.m. via lethal injection. Nixon's final statement was, "I'm sorry for what I did. I'm sorry for the world. I'm sorry for myself. And I'm sorry for the family. I did not kill Virginia Tucker. I know in my heart, and it pains me to admit it, that it was my son and a Spanish friend and another man from Jackson." He was pronounced dead at 6:35 p.m. Clarence Ray Allen, California. Clarence Ray Allen was executed on January 17, 2006 at San Quentin State Prison, requiring an additional potassium dose to stop his heart during the lethal injection procedure. Allen's criminal enterprise began in 1974 with the planned robbery of Franz Market in Fresno, California, owned by Ray and Franz Schletowitz. Allen, already possessing an extensive criminal record, recruited his son Roger Allen along with accomplices Ed Savala, Carl Mayfield, and Charles Jones. The robbery netted $500 in cash and $10,000 in money orders. Following the robbery, Allen convened his criminal associates to address Mary Sue Kitts, who was connected to his son and had become a security risk due to excessive discussion about their crimes. The group voted unanimously for her elimination, and Allen personally carried out her murder as retaliation for potential cooperation with authorities. Even while imprisoned, Allen continued orchestrating criminal activities, collaborating with cellmate Billy Ray Hamilton to eliminate key prosecution witnesses. In 1980, Hamilton and his girlfriend executed Allen's plan, murdering Brian Schletowitz, Josephine Rocha, and Douglas White, while injuring 2 additional victims. Allen's goal was securing exoneration on previous charges through witness elimination. Allen's arrest led to convictions for multiple murders and conspiracy to murder witnesses, resulting in a 1982 death sentence. His appeals focused on arguments that advanced age and deteriorating physical condition made execution inappropriate. Courts rejected these appeals, and California Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger denied clemency in 2005. Allen's last meal included buffalo meat, fried bread, KFC chicken bucket, sugar-free pecan pie, sugar-free walnut ice cream, and whole milk. His final words were, "Hokahe, it's a good day to die. Thank you all, I love you all, goodbye." He was pronounced dead at 12:38 a.m. Thomas Douglas Arthur, Alabama. Thomas Douglas Arthur earned the nickname Houdini of Death Row for successfully evading 7 scheduled execution dates before his final execution on May 26, 2017, at Holman Correctional Facility. Arthur's initial crime occurred in 1977 when he murdered Eloise Bray West, his wife's sister, after she refused to reveal his location. This resulted in a life sentence. While participating in a prison work release program, Arthur developed a relationship with Judy Wicker, who offered him $10,000 in 1982 to murder her husband, Troy Wicker. Arthur accepted the contract and acquired ammunition through criminal contacts. On February 1, 1982, he infiltrated the Wicker residence wearing a disguise consisting of a wig and dark makeup. Troy Wicker was executed with a point-blank shot to the right eye, causing immediate death. Judy initially claimed an unknown assailant had attacked her before killing her husband. Investigators discovered inconsistencies in Arthur's alibi and located $2,000 cash among his possessions. Evidence revealed that Judy had compensated Arthur using proceeds from her husband's $90,000 life insurance policy. Judy received a life sentence, but later testified against Arthur in exchange for sentence reduction. Despite maintaining innocence, Arthur was convicted on March 22, 1983, and sentenced to death. His first 2 convictions were overturned, but the 3rd conviction was upheld. Arthur faced scheduled executions in 2001, 2007, 2008, 2012, 2015, 2016, and 2017, with all but the final date being canceled. Arthur declined his final meal, stating, "I don't believe in that last meal nonsense. I never have an appetite when they're trying to kill you. You're not hungry." His final words consisted of "I love you" directed at his daughter, accompanied by a thumbs-up gesture. In pre-execution interviews, Arthur discussed the impact of repeated execution dates on his family. "It almost killed my oldest daughter, Sherry. She came to 6 executions, and the stress of her father being killed was so traumatic that it damaged her heart. She almost lost her business and her home, so I told her to disconnect. I didn't want her to come anymore. She didn't come to the 7th one and won't come to this one." He was pronounced dead at 12:15 a.m. Murray Hooper, Arizona. Murray Hooper was executed on November 16, 2022 at Florence State Prison in Arizona, after spending more than 4 decades on death row. Technical difficulties with intravenous line insertion delayed the procedure, ultimately requiring administration of pentobarbital through the femoral artery. The crimes occurred on December 31, 1980, when Hooper and two accomplices invaded the Phoenix home of William Pat Redmond. The intruders bound and gagged Redmond, his wife Marilyn, and her mother Helen Phelps, before executing them with headshots. Marilyn survived the attack and provided crucial testimony against Hooper during trial proceedings. Authorities determined that the murders were commissioned by an individual seeking control of Redmond's printing business. Hooper received a death sentence and remained on death row for over 40 years. His defense team unsuccessfully pursued DNA and fingerprint testing of case evidence, while arguing that Marilyn Redmond's identification of Hooper had evolved over time. They also contended that prosecution witnesses had received benefits in unrelated criminal cases in exchange for testimony. Hooper's final meal consisted of Kentucky Fried Chicken, macaroni and cheese, barbecue sauce, a biscuit, cheesecake, 2 pints of Neapolitan ice cream, and a large Fanta soda. Before the execution commenced, Hooper smiled and waved at witnesses, stating, "It's all been said, let it be done." He addressed his legal team, friends, and family with, "Don't cry for me, don't be sad." Minutes later, his body ceased movement. He was pronounced dead at 10:09 a.m. Cecil Clayton, Missouri. Cecil Clayton was executed on March 17, 2015, at Missouri State Penitentiary. His case generated significant attention due to a severe brain injury sustained in 1972. Clayton killed Sheriff's Deputy Chris Castetter in Missouri in 1996. His legal case centered on a traumatic brain injury from a 1972 sawmill accident that required surgical removal of 1/5 of his frontal lobe. Defense attorneys argued that this brain damage caused dramatic personality changes, impaired judgment, and rendered him mentally incompetent for capital punishment. Despite extensive appeals based on his neurological condition, courts determined that Clayton possessed sufficient understanding of his execution to qualify for capital punishment. The Supreme Court rejected his stay request, and Missouri Governor Jay Nixon denied clemency. Clayton's last meal included steak, salad, mashed potatoes with gravy, bread, apple pie, and milk. When asked for final words, Clayton simply responded, "No, they brought me here to execute me." He was pronounced dead at 9:21 p.m. John Albert Bolts, Oklahoma. John Albert Bolts was executed on June 1, 2006 at Oklahoma State Penitentiary after spending over 21 years on death row. The murder occurred on April 18, 1984, when Bolts killed his 23-year-old stepson, Doug Kirby, in Pontotoc County, Oklahoma. Following an evening of drinking, Bolts broke into his mother-in-law's residence and argued with his wife. After she threatened police involvement, he departed, but later contacted Doug for a meeting at his trailer home. Bolts subsequently called his wife, threatening, "I'm going to cut your dear boy's head off." She immediately contacted authorities. A neighbor witnessed Doug on the floor while Bolts struck him and shouted profanities before stabbing him with a sharp object. Bolts claimed self-defense, alleging that Doug attempted to grab a weapon upon arrival. However, investigators found a revolver in the victim's vehicle with no blood traces despite the seat being blood-covered. Bolts was sentenced to death on November 21, 1984. His final meal consisted of fried chicken, potato wedges, baked beans, coleslaw, apple pie, and a roll. Bolts's last words were, "This is a moment of joy for me and a moment of sadness. It's a moment of joy because I know I'm going to a better place. It's a moment of sadness because I think about all the people involved who brought me here and what awaits them. It's been many years of pain, and now it all comes down to this." He also referenced Old Testament passages encouraging witnesses to read Deuteronomy. He was pronounced dead at 7:22 p.m. James Barney Hubbard, Alabama. James Barney Hubbard was executed on August 5, 2004. at Holman Prison near Atmore, Alabama, becoming the oldest inmate executed in the United States since capital punishment's 1976 reinstatement. Hubbard's criminal history began with a 1957 second-degree murder conviction for killing David Dockery in Tuscaloosa County. After serving 19 years, he was released in 1976. Within a year, he committed his second murder. The victim, Lillian Montgomery, was a 62-year-old store owner who had befriended Hubbard and provided support during his release. Following his prison release, Hubbard moved into Montgomery's home, adjacent to her Tuscaloosa store. On January 10, 1977, Montgomery was discovered dead with 3 gunshot wounds, face, head, and shoulder. Her gold and diamond watch plus approximately $500 in cash and checks were stolen. Hubbard claimed they had consumed whiskey together and that Montgomery had committed suicide, even reporting this version to police. However, evidence clearly indicated homicide. He was arrested and sentenced to death in 1977, spending nearly 3 decades on death row while pursuing appeals based on advanced age and mental deterioration arguments. The U.S. Supreme Court rejected his appeal in a 5-4 decision, and Alabama Governor Bob Riley denied clemency. Hubbard's final meal included 2 medium-boiled eggs, 4 bacon slices, sliced tomatoes, fried green tomatoes, pineapple slices with mayonnaise, white bread, a banana, and medium V8 juice. During the execution, his daughter, Barbara McKeon, observed from an adjacent room while Hubbard maintained eye contact until death. Jimmy Montgomery, the victim's son, also witnessed the execution and expressed disappointment that Hubbard offered no final words or remorse. He was pronounced dead at 6:36 p.m. Brandon Astor Jones, Georgia. Brandon Astor Jones was executed on February 3, 2016, in Georgia, after officials struggled for 45 minutes to establish intravenous access, attempting his left arm, right arm, and finally succeeding in his groin area. The crime occurred on June 17, 1979, when Roger Tackett was managing a Tanaco convenience store during a robbery. Jones and Van Roosevelt Solomon entered with robbery intentions, resulting in Tackett's death. Both men were arrested, with Jones receiving a death sentence on October 17, 1979. Solomon was executed in 1985 by electric chair at age 41. In 1989, a federal court ordered Jones' resentencing after discovering that jurors had brought a Bible into deliberation. He was again sentenced to death in 1997. Jones declined to request a specific final meal, receiving the standard institutional tray containing chicken and rice, collard greens, seasoned turnip greens, and cornbread. Jones made no public final statement, but accepted a final prayer and recorded a message for his family. According to the Georgia Department of Corrections, this was Georgia's first execution in 2016 and the 5th nationally that year. He was pronounced dead at 12:46 a.m. These cases represent decades of legal proceedings, appeals, and the ultimate implementation of capital punishment for America's oldest death row inmates. Each case reflects the complex intersection of crime, justice, aging, and the death penalty system in the United States. Please like this video, share it, and subscribe to our channel to be the first to know when we release more death row documentaries.